Hi guys, I wanted to jump online and make some more content, and again, as per usual, I knew I wanted to make some content and I didn't have anything in my head about what I wanted to create. But then thankfully I was having a conversation with a lovely friend of mine around this subject, and it just sprung to me that I could probably make something around that, because it's something that actually impacts quite a lot of us. So let's talk about it. You can pull up a little pew, get your cup of tea. I've got my lovely cup of green tea here. And what I wanted to talk about is, why do so many of us feel unmotivated when we move through the month of January, or into a new year? So many of us have that mindset of January being a really, really long month. You see so many memes, or like memes, or whatever, however they're pronounced, I don't know. But lots of stuff out there that sort of leans to January feeling like a really long month. And the other factors is, so many of us lean into a new year with the ideals of how we want that year to pan out, resolutions we want to achieve. It's such a tradition, isn't it, for the majority of the world to make sort of resolutions of what they want to achieve in the year. And then sort of midway through January, maybe into February, we're falling flat on that sort of momentum, or that get up and go in respect of how we are approaching those goals and things unfolding. And some of us tend to get to a point where we just sort of give up and just feel like we've not succeeded. There's something that we're doing wrong, or maybe it's not the right path for us. And this actually is going to be a bit of a broader subject for me, because there's a little bit of a series that I've noticed going on in the background of things that I continuously talk about. And that specifically is something that I refer to as disconnecting to reconnect. And this kind of leans into this subject as well. So generally, this is a subject that I've noticed quite a few creators putting out there. And so it's not my own information. It's just stuff that I picked up on, and it kind of makes complete sense. So we, specifically in the Western world, and the majority of the world, reside on under something called the Gregorian calendar. And the Gregorian calendar, as we know it, is 12 months long, January to December. But essentially, when you really lean into it and sort of pick that apart, there is a large suggestion that that way in which the calendar unfolds is not accurate, especially to our circadian rhythms and our natural cycle of being in alignment with nature and within ourselves and in our body. And in fact, it's perceived and believed that we should actually have a 13-month calendar. And when you look at it, it actually kind of makes a little bit of sense. So, for example, when we look at the months, you have September. In Latin, that would be considered sept, which is 7. When you look at the month of October, for example, in Latin, that would be considered octo, which is the number 8. So that would suggest that September should be the 7th month and October should be the 8th month. And ultimately, as we sort of digest that and pull that apart a little bit more, it kind of makes sense as to why so many of us can feel unmotivated in January. There's a large suggestion that our real, true new year actually starts during the spring equinox, end of March, beginning of April, which kind of makes complete sense. That's the time of year, especially in the UK, where we experience spring. Things coming to life, things being birthed, things being sort of brought into fruition. We see it in nature, and that's predominantly the time of year that we sort of celebrate Easter. And so that largely can be considered actually the real time that we should be experiencing our new year, and that should be the time of year that we should be making our resolutions. And when you sit back and reflect on that, it really does make sense. So January for us, and leading up to that sort of spring equinox, this period of time is really the time that we should still be listening to our body. So many of us still feel really lethargic this time of year. We feel the call to hibernate. We feel the call to sort of spend more time resting and digesting. But we don't do that, because in January we feel that we need to have that motivation. We need to get out there. We need to make these new goals, and we push ourselves out of alignment with our natural circadian rhythm. We, in that process, disrupt our nervous system. We, in that process, become so disconnected from our bodies and how they are actually meant to be working. When our body is calling us to rest and digest, that's when we should listen to it. And the world that we live in, the only time that we actually consider resting and digesting and listening to it, and I learned that in my own experience, is when we're so incredibly burnt out that we have to, that we don't get a choice around it. Our body just says, no, sorry, I'm not going to work anymore. And so this is kind of like not only just an acknowledgement around, that sort of reflection of why so many of us can feel exhausted at this time of year, but just knowing that there's a reason why. And it's an acknowledgement that we are outside of our natural cycle and we're outside of our natural circadian rhythm, and that leans into so many other aspects of our life as well. If you look at the way that we operate ourselves in the world, we are so disconnected from ourselves, so disconnected from our natural state of being. We're so disconnected from nature. We're so disconnected from our natural cycles. And this is, it can be largely, based around the environments that we're in, whether that's work, working really, unusual different hours, whether that's sort of being on your phone a lot of the time and having that sort of like blue light that tends to sort of be received by us when we're sort of on our devices. This is why it's really beneficial to have those sort of blue light blocking glasses, or a blue light blocker on your phone, and working with red light therapy, because we have really sort of lent out of that natural circadian rhythm. And so January, I feel, is a really challenging month because we're not in alignment with our body and what it's calling us to do. And so if it is calling you to rest and digest, yes, I know that it's not always easy for all of us in terms of, the this sort of day-to-day life that we live, whether that's sort of within a family setting, whether that's in a work setting, whatever the case may be. But it's kind of popping into your day-to-day routine, things that can support your nervous system. Maybe looking at, are you setting resolutions and you feel like you're falling flat and you don't have that motivation? Well, then maybe hold them off until the spring equinox, when you actually do feel motivated, or at a point that you do feel motivated naturally. If you're feeling called to rest, and you maybe can't sort of rest and have like an afternoon nap, but you can certainly pop sort of like a 10-minute walk in nature, getting yourself outside, trying to get as much natural daylight as you can into your system, so that your body can feel like it's back in that natural rhythm. Nourishing your body with, warming foods, warming drinks, going to bed a little bit earlier, if you're feeling like really, really exhausted, trying to stay off your devices. I'm the worst for that. So I put my hands up and say that's something that I'm definitely trying to do, is stay off my device. But staying off your devices and, just trying to implement these things day to day, 10-minute meditation, grounding yourself in nature, and just reflecting on it and just acknowledging if you're feeling exhausted, unmotivated, and out of alignment at this time of year, it's more than likely because you probably are, because we've been, to some degree, conditioned to be that way. And so, I'm definitely going to make a little bit more of an in-depth series, I think, around the whole mindset of disconnecting to reconnect. So disconnecting from the world around us in the way that we've been sort of conditioned to experience it, and to reconnect with ourselves, with that natural alignment, that natural cycle of what our body intuitively is calling us to do and has always been all along. So I hope that helps. I hope that is sort of receives you exactly when it's meant to. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you have any feedback, let me know in the comments. And as always, this might not resonate with you, and that's okay. This is just a message that's kind of resonated with me and with a few people that I've spoken to. And I just wanted to share it with you. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.